Hey guys, it's Bex. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about books that I want to read in 2025, aka my 25 in 25. If you saw last year, I and a lot of people made like a list of books that they wanted to prioritize reading in the year 2024. I will say as of right now, we have a little over a week left until the end of the year when I'm filming this, and I've probably read 3/4 of the books on there. So pretty good. I didn't get to all of them, and a couple of these are repeats from last year that I didn't get to that I just really want to prioritize getting to in 2025. It was really hard to pick 25 books, to be honest, but obviously this is just a list. It doesn't really matter what I put on there. I want to read more books than 25 books. I probably have about half of these books physically. Some are on Kindle Unlimited, some I just don't own yet, so I will of course be telling you which ones are in Kindle Unlimited if I know if they are. The first one is Last Time I Checked, and that is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is a repeat from last year. I put it on my list even though I hadn't even read Divine Rivals yet when I made my list last year, but I did in fact read Divine Rivals. So I got to that one, but I didn't get to Ruthless Vows. They were both on my list. So I really want to get to it in 2025. I also really want to prioritize finishing series that I'm in the middle of. I think I might do a video soon or something about series that I'm in the middle of, or at least a video trying to continue or finish reading series that I'm in the middle of. So be on the lookout for that, but this is just a duology. It's a fantasy romance. I've heard some mixed reviews on this one, but I think I'll like it based on what I've heard, because I think some people didn't like it as much because it's less romance and more fantasy, but I like fantasy even without romance. But yeah, that's the first one. I won't be talking too much about these books because otherwise it's going to take me a really long time, and it still probably will because I can never shut up. Second book on this list is the start of a series. I know, but I've owned it and I really do think I'm going to love it and read it very soon, and it is just a duology, and that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I was gonna put both books on this list, but I just put the first one. That's what I did with pretty much all the series on this list so that I could talk about more books because they kind of go together, you know, books and series. So if you don't know, this is like a fantasy, adult fantasy, or actually I think it's young adult fantasy, which I always thought it was adult for some reason, but I don't think it is. And it's like about a heist. It's got really good found family, I've heard, and I've never read anything by her. I have not read the Shadow and Bone series. I don't think I'm going to. Sorry if you think I should read those first. I just haven't heard the best things about them, and then I've heard amazing things about this one, so I think I'm just gonna jump right into this duology. But I'm definitely planning on reading this duology soon. It seems wintry to me. I don't know if it is or not, but I really want to read it in the winter. This next one is on Kindle Unlimited, and it is Phantasma. I can't remember who it's by. I didn't write the names of the authors. From what I know about this book, it's a fantasy romance. I don't know. I think it's adult, and it is about some sort of kind of dark game that two sisters get involved with. The reason I remember even some of what this book is about is because it really gives me Caraval vibes, but make it like darker a little bit, and it's adult versus YA. And I loved Caraval. If you've watched like any of my videos, I feel like I talk about it all the time, but I love Caraval. So I am very interested to see if I like this or if I just feel like it's going to be kind of a ripoff, but I've heard really good things, so I feel like I will like it because it's similar to Caraval. But if it's too similar, you know, it could put me off on it. But I'm really excited to read it, and I don't know how many books are going to be in the series, but it is the first book in what is to be a series. Next one I have on here is very exciting, ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. I have the whole series. I want to finish a couple other series that I'm in the middle of first, just because this is a 5-book series currently, and this one is one of the smaller books in the series. A couple of them are really chunky, so it's kind of a commitment and intimidating. But this is an adult fantasy with like fae. I really don't know what it's about, to be honest, but obviously it has so much hype and people absolutely love it. So based on what I've heard, I think I will love it, and I'm really excited to read it. All right, next one is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. This is a repeat from last year. I think ACOTAR was too, by the way, and Six of Crows. But this is just a standalone. It's, I think, a YA dystopian, since it's a YA thriller. And it says because it's in the vein of the Hunger Games. I feel like I will like it based on what I've heard about it. I've heard that it's a little bit dark for some people's liking, but I don't really mind that in books. I believe it is about the Grace Year, which is basically what these girls' 16th year of life is called, and they are banished for that year to release their magic into the wild so they can return purified and ready for marriage, but not all of them will make it home alive. I was just gonna say I'm excited to read this, but I feel like I'm gonna say that for every book. Obviously, I'm excited to read these books. A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This is the start of a series. I think the first 2 books are out, and I think, yeah, it's going to be a trilogy. It says it's a epic fantasy romance trilogy. The main character has some rare magical abilities. She's taken prisoner by the most dangerous kingdom on the continent and made to use her abilities to heal the soldiers of the vicious Onyx King. I've heard really good things about it. From what I have heard about it, I feel like it's not extremely hyped or talked about a ton, but some of the YouTubers, booktubers that I watch and have really similar book tastes with have really liked it, so I think I will too. That was also a repeat from last year. The next one is also a start of a series, and I own the whole series, and that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I feel like so late to the game with this series. I really think I will like it. I have heard kind of mixed reviews on it. From what I've heard, it is, I think, a YA fantasy with a little bit of romance, and I think a lot of people go into it thinking it has more romance than it does, and then therefore are disappointed. I, again, like fantasies even without romance, and also I tend to like YA books. I know, again, that's kind of not everyone's cup of tea for adults, and I am an adult. I'm like 27 years old. Not like I am 27, but I still like them. I think they're just lighter and fluffier usually, and cute and fun, and that's kind of my preference in books. Sometimes I do like more deep emotional reads, but more rarely for sure. Next is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. If you know, you know, I've had this book on so many TBRs. I've had this book longer than any other book I own, probably for over 2 years now. It was literally one of the first books I bought when I went book shopping, when I was first getting back into reading, and I still haven't read it, so we'll see when I read it, but I really, really need to. Oh, and this is a mystery thriller about this young daughter that goes missing, and 10 years goes by, and the parents see a girl that is like her doppelganger, and her disappearance was never solved. They don't know if she was dead or if she just, you know, ran away or what happened. So the parents then, oh, I guess she's actually a single mother because she meets a guy, and the daughter of the guy is the one who's a spinning image of Ellie, the daughter. So she just goes on to try to actually figure out what happened to her daughter all these years later because it was never solved. Next, I have one that I don't own and that I don't think is on Kindle Unlimited either, and that is The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. I will probably end up listening to this on audiobook because that's literally what I've done with all of her books so far. I've read 3 of her books so far. I just love her audiobooks. They are so cute, and I just love her books. And this is going to be my first adult romance by Lynn Painter. All the other ones I've read have been YA, but this one sounds the most interesting to me out of her adult romances. I can't really remember what it's about except for I think it being about some sort of wager, obviously the love wager, that the 2 main characters make between each other that involves their love lives, dating, something like that. And yeah, I'll probably listen to it on an audiobook, but I'm so excited to finally get to that one. We're on the 10th book, and that is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Again, I just put the first book, but really the whole series on this list, and this is a YA mystery series. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so that's probably where I'm going to be reading it, and I've heard everyone describe it like this, so I'm going to as well because that's what got me to want to read it. But it is apparently like Criminal Minds but with teenagers, and the teenagers kind of have knacks for solving crimes, and therefore they're recruited by the FBI to help solve a murder or multiple murders, I'm not sure. I've heard such good things about this series, and I really like Jennifer Lynn Barnes' The Inheritance Games series, so I'm excited to read something else by her finally. Next one is a chunker, and I'm intimidated, but I think I'll love it. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. How many pages is this book even? It's 564 pages. So honestly, not as bad as I thought. I've read multiple books that are that long, and it definitely takes longer to read them. This is soon to be major motion picture starring the Fanning sisters, Elle Fanning and Dakota Fanning. This book is about these two sisters in, I'm assuming, Germany, because it takes place around World War II. And versus it being more about the war and the fighting and the men, it's about the women's war kind of during World War II. And it tells the story of the two sisters, each embarking on their own dangerous path towards survival, love, and freedom. Oh, they live in France, I'm sorry, which was German occupied during the war. I've never read anything by her. I have a feeling I'm gonna cry really hard. And I like crying in books, and I cry a lot in books. I'm a very emotional reader. If something is cute, like a romance, I'm probably gonna cry. If it's sad, I'm definitely gonna cry. So really excited to read this finally. I haven't had it horribly long, but I definitely want to read it before the movie comes out. I'm not sure when that is, to be honest. Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This, I believe, was also on last year's, but I really want to read it in like October or the fall time, and I didn't get to it this year. This is a standalone fantasy about like magical libraries, magical grimoires, grotesque monsters, sorcerers. I haven't heard a ton about it, but when I have heard about this, I've heard good things. Next, we have the continuation of a series that I've already started, and I don't know why I haven't read the next one yet because I loved the first one. It was a 5-star book for me, and that is Arch Enemies, which is the second book in the Renegades trilogy by Marissa Meyer. This is a YA sci-fi because it's about superheroes series. It's not super sci-fi besides it being about superheroes, obviously, but I think people hear sci-fi a lot of times and they're like, oh, nope, that's not my genre, don't want to read that. But this was such a fun book, the first one, and like I said, I loved it. It was 5 stars, probably one of my favorite books of 2024, and it ended crazy, and I didn't go straight into the next one because I didn't own it. I just recently sort of bought these probably 4.5 months ago, so not super recent, but I just haven't gotten around to reading them yet. Next, we have Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is another kind of historical book, except this is fantasy because it is, oh, it's also kind of romance, I think, but I believe it is told from the point of view of, is it just one Greek god or multiple Greek gods, Aphrodite, I think, and it tells the story of 4 people, and I've heard amazing things about this. Again, not super hyped, but the couple reviews I have seen of it, they loved this book. Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I just read my first V.E. Schwab book, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I loved it. I rated it 5 stars. Now it makes me really want to read this because I loved her writing, and this one I don't feel quite as confident that I'm going to absolutely love because it's a little bit out of my comfort zone. I think it's considered fantasy. It's about these 2 college roommates who in their senior year share a research interest in adrenaline, near-death experiences, and seemingly supernatural events, which reveals that under the right conditions, someone could develop extraordinary abilities, and things go horribly wrong along the way. It is going to be a trilogy. There's 2 books out so far. Next, we have, I think, our only second romance on this list, and that is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I don't read a ton of plain romance, contemporary romance that don't have other genres in there, but this one I am intrigued to read. I've read one other Emily Henry book, which was Funny Story, and I liked it. I think I rated it like 4 stars. So I've heard this one is people's favorite most of the time, and I am planning, I think, on reading this while I'm in Costa Rica, or at least bringing it. So we will see if I actually get to it, but I know it's about like 2 writers that switch genres that they write about. She's a romance writer, he's a literary fiction writer, and they switch genres and therefore kind of go on little adventures to help the other person out in writing their books or something like that. I don't really know how, oh, that's why it's beachy. Okay, I was just gonna say I don't really know how it's beachy, but the cover and the title obviously, but it says here, the only thing they have in common is that for the next 3 months they're living in neighboring beach houses, broke and bogged down with writer's block. So yeah, this might be a good one to read on the beach. Next one is a new release that isn't out yet. It's almost out. I am so excited. You probably know what I'm talking about. It comes out in January, and that is is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, the third book in the Fourth Wing, however many books there's going to be in the series. I think 5 she's thought out. Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and then this third one, Onyx Storm. I really loved both of the first 2 books. I gave the first book 5 stars and the second one 4.5. It wasn't quite as good, but I was one of those people that really liked it still. A lot of people hated it, but I liked it. I don't know. So I'm definitely continuing the series. I pre-ordered the book with like the special sprayed edges of dragons and stuff. I'm so excited. If you don't know what this series is about already, it has a lot of hype, but it is an adult romantasy about like this war college that has different kind of paths you can take. And our main character Violet is in the dragon riding, can't remember the word they call the path of school, but you probably know what I'm talking about. I don't know. She's in the dragon riding area of the school, and it's very dangerous, and there's a romance between her and one of the other dragon riders, and it's so good. Highly recommend reading this series. Getting closer to the end, the next one I have is Lightlark by Alex Aster. Again, the start of a new series, but I own this one, so I gotta read it, and I'm really excited. This is a 3-book series as of now, but the first 3 books are out at least, and it is about like this island of Lightlark that appears for only 100 days to host a deadly game every 100 years. Our main character Isla is competing in the game because I guess she is a ruler of a realm, because the rulers of 6 different realms are playing in the game to win unparalleled power. I've heard mixed things on it, but we'll see what I think of it. Next, I have another new release coming out in 2025 that is the completion, the final book in a trilogy, and that is the Powerless trilogy, the 3rd book called Fearless by Lauren Roberts. This is a YA romantasy series about this girl who is an ordinary, meaning she doesn't have any powers, in a world where there are elites. They do have powers, and she finds herself competing in this game, kind of, where all of the contestants are elites, and she has her whole life been pretending to be an elite, but she's not. So she has a big disadvantage, and she and one of the other contestants, aka one of the princes of the kingdom, start catching feelings for another. But they're enemies because the elites hate ordinaries and they are supposed to be banished, and she's again not, because she's been pretending to be an elite pretty much her whole life, and she's good at it. This series so far is like a 4.5 star for me. I think the first one I rated 4.75 and the second one I rated a 4.25. There's also a novella in there which I rated 4 stars, but really excited to read this. Sad that the series is going to be over, but I have really enjoyed it so far. The next one I put on here specifically because I want to listen to it on audio, and that is Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton. I've heard the audiobook's really good because it is narrated by Tom Felton himself. And if you don't know, he is an actor, and he played Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter series. And I think a lot of the book, or maybe some of it, is kind of about his time filming the Harry Potter movies. And I am a diehard Harry Potter fan. The books, amazing. 5 stars, every one of them. Some 6 stars. Movies, amazing. I watch them every year. So really excited to get his perspective on it. I've heard it's really good, and I would love to read another nonfiction in 2025 because I think I only read one in 2024, and it was also a memoir. That's definitely my nonfiction of choice. Next, we have Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli, which is the 2nd book in the Crimson Moth duology. The first book is called Heartless Hunter. This is also a fantasy romance duology. I love fantasy romance. Can you tell? A lot of these are fantasy romance books. Loved the first book. I read it kind of recently, and it was like a 4.5 star for me. So I think the second book comes out, is it like February? I read the first one on Kindle Unlimited, so I don't know if the second one will be out on Kindle Unlimited right away or at all, or if I'm actually have to buy it physically. But either way, definitely going to be reading it. Oh, and this is kind of a cat and mouse romance between a witch and a witch hunter. So enemies to lovers, of course. 4 more! 3 of the next 4 are also upcoming releases that I'm excited about. The next one is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. There are still a good amount of books that I have to read from her backlist that I haven't gotten to yet, but I think I've read 3 by her now, and they've all been at least 4 stars. Some were very close to 5 stars, and she writes fiction, and she writes about all different things. This one, I believe, has to do with an astronaut. I should probably know more about it, but I just saw that she was coming out with another book, so I added it to this list. Her books, by the way, are also really good on audio. I think I've read all of her books on audio too. That's so funny. There's just certain authors for me that I just really like their audiobooks, and she's one of them. And I don't remember when this is coming out. That's not really what this book is about. This video is about, but they all come out in 2025 at least, and I think sort of early in 2025, like the first half of the year. This next one is a book by an OG author that I think almost all of us have read her series, The Hunger Games. She's coming out, she meaning Suzanne Collins, is coming out with a new book in the Hunger Games series, Sunrise on the Reaping, that is about, if you know the Hunger Games, you know Haymitch. It is about Haymitch's story and his Hunger Games that he was a contestant in, and I, as well as a lot of Hunger Games fans, loved Haymitch in the original Hunger Games trilogy. If you don't know, the Hunger Games is about these games that the capital of the 12 districts in this like world puts on every year, and it's very brutal. They pick 2 tributes from each district, each of the 12 districts, to compete in the Hunger Games, and literally only one person survives out of the 24 people, and Haymitch is from the 12th district, which is kind of like the poor district, and no one ever wins in this district because they just don't have the resources that the other ones have with like training and preparing for these games. So excited for that. Next one is Recursion by Blake Crouch. I just don't own this book yet. I don't think it's on Kindle Unlimited or anything, and I have read one other book by Blake Crouch, Dark Matter, and I really liked it. That one, and I think this one too, is kind of like a sci-fi thriller. To be honest, I don't remember what Recursion is about, so couldn't tell you, but I really liked Dark Matter. I really liked his writing. I was very engrossed in the story and wanting to figure out how it was going to end. Would love to read another book by him. Very lastly, my 25th book, I feel like I've been talking for a million years, is another book by an author that I previously have read books by and really liked, and that is Rachel Gillick. She's coming out with a new fantasy series called, I don't know what the series is called, but the first book is called The Night and the Moth. I also don't know what this series is about. I just know that she wrote, by the way, I always forget what the series is actually called, The Shepherd King Duology, One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. That was pretty popular like this last year, 2024, and I read those kind of recently and I loved them. So far I really like her writing and storytelling, and I'm really excited to read another book and series from her. Those are the 25 books that I want to read in 2025. Hopefully we will do better in 2025 and actually read all these books, unlike 2024. And I didn't do horrible, but definitely could have done better, and at least going to try to read all of the ones that I own, because that is always the priority for me at least, and specifically the ones that are continuations of series. So yeah, let me know what books you guys are most excited and looking forward to reading in 2025. I'm always looking for recommendations. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!